The silence in the bistro didn't just hang, it pressed against the walls until the silverware began to rattle. It was the kind of silence that usually preceded a gunshot, yet here it sat, anchored by a young boy with curly dark hair and eyes so glassy and distant they seemed to be looking at a world no one else could see. Beside him, Bastian Drago was a storm held in a black suit. He possessed sharp, aristocratic features and tattoos that crawled like ink-black vines across his neck and hands, marking him as a man of lethal intensity. But beneath that marble exterior was a look of desperate freight, the look of a father realizing his son's silence was a prison he couldn't break. Corinne Coco Rivers didn't flinch. Standing in her crisp bistro uniform, her hair in a professional bun, she possessed a steady presence designed to assess threats before they arrived at the table. She had spent her life navigating a city that tried to silence women like her, and she knew that the loudest thing in this room wasn't Bastian's reputation, it was the secret the boy was keeping. She didn't demand a word. Instead, she placed a warm cup of cocoa on the table, a single marshmallow boat floating on its surface. She simply sat, offering herself as a witness who required nothing. And then, the glassiness in the boy's blue eyes shattered. For the first time in months, Elio spoke. It began as a whisper and turned into a 10-minute flood, a confession that would turn the lethal tension of the room into a frantic race for survival. The Drago family arrived at Moreau's Bistro every Tuesday at precisely 7:15, and the entire restaurant rearranged itself around their presence like iron filings drawn to a magnet. Bastian Drago never announced himself. He didn't need to. His reputation preceded him, followed him, and would probably outlive him, the youngest Don to control the South Side territories, a man who built his empire on calculated violence and strategic silence. Corinne had served dangerous men before. Chicago produced them the way we'd split concrete. But Bastian was different. He moved as if the world might fracture without warning, his body coiled with an energy that never fully discharged. Even seated, he looked prepared for war. Tonight, he wore navy instead of his usual black, a small change that somehow made him more dangerous. The men with him, Marco and Dominic, names Corinne learned without introductions, took up their usual positions near the entrance and kitchen. They didn't sit. They didn't relax. They were architecture made flesh, load-bearing walls built to absorb bullets. Elio sat in his usual spot, back to the windows. He'd finally shed the yellow raincoat, revealing a button-down shirt that looked freshly pressed and slightly too large. His dark curls were combed but already rebelling, springing up like question marks. "Good evening, Mr. Drago," Corinne said softly. "Neutral. Present without intrusion. Your usual table." Bastian's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Please." She led them through the dining room, past an anniversary couple trying too hard, a business dinner collapsing into forced laughter, a woman alone with a book she wasn't reading. Everyone pretended not to notice the Dragos. Everyone noticed. The corner booth was already prepared. Fresh white roses, his wife's favorite. Water glasses filled to the exact level, no ice. Cloth napkins folded into perfect triangles. In Bastian's world, details weren't preferences. They were tests. Elio slid into the booth without looking up. His hands found the napkin immediately, folding it with quick, practiced movements. Cranes. Boats. Shapes that shouldn't have been possible with a square of cloth. "He's getting better," Corinne said quietly. Bastian's eyes flickered to his son. For a heartbeat, the marble cracked. Grief, raw, unhealed, surfaced before sealing itself away. His mother taught him origami. She said it helped her think. Past tense. Always past tense. "I'll start his hot chocolate," Corinne said, offering an exit. "Wait." Bastian lifted a hand, stopping short of touching her. "Today, could you make it special? It's his birthday. 8 years old. 8 years old and drowning in silence." "Of course," Corinne said, smiling at Elio even though he didn't look up. "I have an idea." In the kitchen, she worked carefully. Premium cocoa. Steamed milk at exactly 160 degrees. A touch of vanilla. Then 4 marshmallows, arranged into a small boat, secured with a toothpick and a tiny sail folded from parchment paper. "You're making art for a mob boss's kid?" Ray muttered. "I'm making hot chocolate for a child who forgot how to speak," Corinne replied. "There's a difference." When she returned, Elio was still folding. Bastian was on the phone, his voice low and lethal, discussing shipping schedules and territory, violence disguised as logistics. Corinne set the mug gently in front of Elio. "Happy birthday. I hear you like boats." For the first time, the boy looked up. His eyes were the color of espresso, dark and deep, flecked with something lighter, memories trying to surface. They fixed on the marshmallow boat with fierce concentration. His lips parted, shaping words that wouldn't come. Bastian's call ended mid-sentence. He lowered the phone, staring at his son with an expression made of hope and fear, equally sharp. The table seemed to hold its breath. Elio's hand hovered over the mug, trembling. Corinne noticed how thin his wrists were, bones visible under skin made translucent by the amber light. "It won't sink," she said softly, crouching to his level. "The sail's waterproof." "Your mom taught you origami, right?" "She sounds like she was smart." Bastian's jaw clenched. Elio looked at Corinne, really looked at her. At her dark skin, neat cornrows, hands rough from carrying plates and scrubbing floors. Working hands. Honest hands. "My grandmother used to make boats from walnut shells," Corinne said quietly. "We'd float them in the sink while she told me stories about her mother, who came north during the Great Migration. She said sometimes survival is just keeping forward, even when you're tiny in a big ocean." Elio touched the mug, still silent, but present. "Gran stopped talking the last 2 years of her life," Corinne continued. Strope took her words. "But she still told stories. With her eyes. With her hands. She'd squeeze my fingers 3 times, 'I love you.' Our own language." Bastian didn't move. He barely breathed. "So I learned," Corinne said, "that silence isn't empty. It's full of things we're scared to say. Words come when they're ready. Or maybe you'll find a different language." Elio lifted the mug carefully. The marshmallow boat bobbed but didn't tip. His lips moved again, soundless. Then he smiled. It was small and fragile, like spun sugar, but real. His eyes crinkled, the distance fading. For a moment, he was just a child, delighted by a simple gift. Corinne rose slowly. "I'll give you a few minutes. The kitchen made something special for dinner." As she walked away, she felt Bastian's gaze on her back, heavy with gratitude, maybe recognition. The understanding that sometimes strangers see what family can't. Behind the kitchen door, she exhaled. Ray watched her carefully. "That kid's got a story," he said. "We all do," Corinne replied, straightening her apron. "His just hasn't come out yet." But it would. She felt it, electric, inevitable, like a storm pressing against the sky. The question wasn't if. It was what it would destroy when it broke. Through the circular window, she watched Elio sip his hot chocolate, carefully studying a marshmallow like a scientist encountering something new. And she watched Bastian watch his son, his face mapped with guilt and hope so heavy it seemed impossible for one man to carry. Whatever had stolen the boy's voice was still out there. Still circling, and Corinne knew, with sudden, terrifying certainty, that before the night was over, she would have to help them face it. The dinner service continued around them in careful choreography, the kind perfected only by places that had learned how to function under pressure. Corinne moved between tables with practiced ease, balancing plates like extensions of her body, pan-seared salmon glossed with lemon butter, roasted vegetables burnished until they gleamed, fresh bread still warm enough to release steam when torn open. Bastian ate mechanically. Fork lifted. Chew. Swallow. Repeat. His attention never truly left his son. Elio picked at his food, nudging vegetables into tidy lines, breaking bread into precise pieces. He finished the hot chocolate instead, slow and deliberate, carefully setting each marshmallow aside on the saucer as if they were valuables meant to be counted and preserved. An hour passed. Then another. The restaurant began to thin, the way all places eventually did when the night grew heavy. The anniversary couple lingered over dessert, unwilling to let the moment end. A late arrival near the bar worked quietly at his laptop, earbuds in, either oblivious or pretending to be. Outside, rain began to fall in earnest, drumming against the windows like impatient fingers testing for weakness. Marco shifted near the entrance, posture tightening. His hand brushed his jacket, unconscious, instinctive, where Corinne knew a gun rested. Dominic checked his watch for the third time in 10 minutes. Even they felt it now, the pressure change that preceded violence, the way storms announced themselves not with thunder but with silence growing too still. Corinne was refilling water glasses when it happened. Marcello. The word fell into the quiet restaurant like a stone into still water. The ripples were immediate and devastating. Bastian's fork clattered against porcelain. Marco's hand closed fully around his gun. Dominic went rigid, eyes snapping to the boy as if reality itself had slipped a gear. Elio was staring at his father. His face had gone pale, but there was something resolute there too, something that hadn't existed before. His small hands gripped the edge of the table so tightly his knuckles blanched white. His lips trembled, shaping the word again and again, though no sound followed after the first utterance. Marcello. 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 Bastian looked like he'd been shot. The color drained from his face, leaving him gray as old concrete. His hands that had signed death warrants and brokered truces, were shaking as he reached across the table toward his son. Elio, he whispered. His voice cracked around the name. Say it again. Please. Please say it again. But Elio was breathing too fast now, chest rising and falling in rapid succession. Panic flooded in, glassy and dangerous. The effort of speaking had dragged him too close to whatever had locked his voice away in the first place. Corinne didn't think. She moved. She slid into the booth beside Elio, not touching him, not crowding him, but close enough that he could feel her presence. You're okay, she said quietly, steady as a metronome. You said something brave. That takes courage. But you don't have to say anything else right now. Just breathe with me. In and out. In and out. She demonstrated, slow and deliberate. It took a moment, but Elio's frantic gasps began to match her rhythm. His grip on the table eased. The glassy panic in his eyes softened just enough for him to focus again. Across from them, Bastian sat frozen. His face was a war map, hope colliding with horror, guilt cutting deep trenches through everything else. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. Marcello is my brother. Elio's uncle. He paused, swallowing hard. The night my wife died. Elio was supposed to be at his house. A sleepover. But he came home early. His voice broke. He saw something. And he hasn't spoken since. The shape of the truth began to assemble in Corinne's mind, each piece sharp enough to cut. She didn't want to see it, but she was already in the water now, already swimming toward what this child had been drowning in for 2 years. Uncle Marcello, she said carefully, watching Elio's face. He did something. That night. Something Elio saw. Elio met her eyes. In them was terror, but also certainty. Confirmation. The terrible weight of a secret too large for a child to carry. I killed her, Bastian whispered. His voice sounded like ash dragged across broken glass. That's what everyone thinks. My wife died in our home. No evidence. No witnesses. And I let the world believe it because I thought. God, I thought if I just gave Elio time, if I kept him safe, he'd tell me eventually. But he didn't. His breath shuddered. He just stopped. Stopped talking. Stopped laughing. Stopped being a child. He stopped, Corinne said slowly, because he was protecting you. Bastian's head snapped up. What? Think about it, she said gently. Your brother kills your wife. Your son sees it. But your son also knows that if he tells you, you'll go after your brother, and in your world, that means war. Blood. Bodies. Risking yourself. Risking him. She looked down at Elio. So he stayed quiet. To keep you safe. To keep you from doing something that would destroy you. Something broke in Bastian then. A sound tore out of his chest, half sob, half curse. He buried his face in his hands, shoulders shaking. Elio made a small sound and reached across the table, not quite touching his father, but close enough to bridge the silence. Then the lights flickered. Once. Twice. Marco's voice cut through the moment like a blade. Boss. We need to move. Now. Bastian lifted his head. Tears streaked his face, but his eyes had gone cold and lethal. How many? 4, maybe 5. Black SUV. No plates. Marco had his gun out now, held low and professional. Back exit is clear, but we need to go. He knows, Bastian said flatly. Marcello knows. He's always known. And now Elio spoke his name. He looked at his son with something close to horror. He's been waiting for this. As long as the boy couldn't speak, Corinne realized with sickening clarity, he wasn't a threat. The front window exploded inward. Glass sprayed. Rain followed. Someone screamed. The anniversary couple dove under their table. The man at the bar vanished behind the counter. And Elio, silent for 2 years, started talking. The words rushed out of him in a torrent, thin but unmistakably clear. He clutched Corinne's hand, she didn't remember taking it, and spoke as if she were the only thing tethering him to the present. It was the Red Gala, he said. Mama's favorite night. Everyone dressed up. The ballroom had candles everywhere. She wore her red dress, the princess one. Papa was dancing with her, and she was laughing. I was supposed to be at Uncle Marcello's, but I wanted to see her one more time, so I came back through the garden gate. Gunfire cracked. Marco returned fire with brutal precision. Dominic shouted orders into his phone, already turning chaos into strategy. Bastian pulled Elio beneath the table, shielding him with his body. I heard voices in Papa's study, Elio continued. Angry voices. Uncle Marcello and another man. The door was open just a crack. Marcello said, she knows. She found the ledgers. If she goes to the commission, we're dead. And the other man said, then she doesn't go to the commission. Corinne dragged them toward the kitchen, staying low. Ray burst through the swinging doors, pale but steady. Basement exit. Health inspector's route. Now. They crawled through shattered glass and overturned chairs. Elio's voice didn't stop. If anything, it grew stronger. I ran upstairs to warn Mama, but she was changing. I told her what I heard and her face went white. She knelt down and held my shoulders and said I had to go back to Uncle Marcello's, to pretend I'd been there all night. Another window shattered behind them. But I didn't leave, Elio sobbed as Bastian carried him down the narrow stairs. I hid in the hallway closet. I wanted to stay close to Mama. I heard her go downstairs. Heard her say, Marcello, I need to speak with you. The basement swallowed them, brick walls damp with age, bare bulbs casting yellow shadows. Dominic worked a rusted lock at the far end. Then what, baby? Bastian whispered, blood streaking his jacket. I heard arguing, Elio said. Mama said, you betrayed him. Marcello laughed. He said Papa was weak. That the family needed real leadership. And Mama was in the way. The lock shrieked open. I heard a sound, Elio whispered. Like a champagne cork popping. Wrong. Quiet. And then Mama was quiet. They ran through the tunnel, water splashing around their ankles, breath echoing. I stayed in the closet for 3 hours, Elio said distantly. I heard Papa come home. Heard him scream. I couldn't move. Marcello was still there, pretending. The tunnel spilled them into an alley washed raw by rain. The immediate danger faded, for now. Bastian sank against the brick wall, rocking his son as the last words fell away. "I'm sorry, Papa," Elio cried. "I was scared." "No," Bastian said fiercely. "You saved us." Marco scanned the street. "We can't stay." Bastian looked at Corinne. "She should run." Instead, she took his hand. "I need your help," he said. She thought of her grandmother's silence. Of tiny boats on big water. "Okay," she said. "But Elio stays safe." "Deal." Above them, sirens howled. Somewhere, Marcello Drago was realizing the truth had finally learned how to speak. And the war had begun. The safe house was in Pilsen, wedged between a bodega and a botanica whose windows displayed dusty Santos and fading candles. Marco retrieved keys from a magnetic drop box hidden beneath a rusted fire escape. Inside, the apartment was bare but deliberate, 2 bedrooms, reinforced door, bars on the windows. The refrigerator held milk, bread, and juice boxes. Someone had planned for this night. Elio sat on the couch wrapped in a mothball-scented blanket, his knees pulled to his chest. Exhaustion had pulled him back into silence, but his eyes tracked his father constantly, as if afraid he might disappear if unobserved. "How long have you known?" Corinne asked quietly as Dominic swept the apartment for bugs. Bastian stood by the window, staring out at the rain-slick street. In the stark light, he looked older. "From the beginning," he said. "I never had proof, but I suspected Marcello. He'd been pushing expansion plans that would have started wars. Angelina handled our finances, she saw things I didn't. A month before she died, she told me money was being siphoned off. Shell companies. Someone building power quietly. And you knew it was your brother. In my world, you don't move against family without certainty. The commission wouldn't back suspicion." His reflection looked hollow. Marcello knew exactly how far he could go. "So he killed your wife before she could expose him," Corinne said, "and let the world think it was you." Bastian didn't answer. His phone buzzed instead. "Marcello." Despite Marco's immediate protest, Bastian answered and put it on speaker. "Brother," Marcello said, voice smooth as aged whiskey, "I hear there was some trouble tonight. Everyone all right? Your men opened fire in a restaurant." "My men?" A pause, perfectly measured. "Why would I attack my own nephew?" "Because he spoke your name tonight. And you know exactly what he remembers." Silence pressed heavy. "That's a hell of an accusation," Marcello said. "It's a fact. Elio saw you. Heard you. Heard what you did to Angelina." A short, humorless laugh. "The testimony of a traumatized child who hasn't spoken in 2 years? Even if it mattered, which it doesn't, you'd need to live long enough to present it. Thank you for clarifying your intentions." "My intentions have always been clear." "You've grown sentimental. Weak. The city is changing, and you're stuck in the past." His voice hardened. "Here's how this ends. You confess to the commission. Your son comes into my care, I am his godfather. I'll raise him properly. And if I refuse? Then I hunt you. I bury you. And everyone knows it's because you murdered your wife and tried to frame your innocent brother." A beat. "You have until midnight." The call ended. Elio lifted his head. "He's lying," he said softly. Every adult turned. "Mama told me before," Elio continued, steadier now. "She made me memorize it. She said the commission records everything. Every meeting. Every private session. They keep it all in the archive under Nazione Plaza. Papa has access." Bastian's breath caught. She knew. She knew he'd move against her, Elio said. Tears slipped down his face, but his voice didn't break. "She said if anything happened, we just needed Marcello's private commission sessions." "He can't delete them," Dominic said slowly. But he can block access if he consolidates power, Marco added. Then we don't ask, Corinne said. We steal. Bastian smiled, sharp and dangerous. I like you. Chicago after rain felt stripped bare. Streets gleamed under sodium lights as Corinne guided them through shadowed routes with quiet confidence. Service industry, she explained. You learn when to disappear. Marco and Dominic stayed behind to maintain the illusion. This needed to be small. Invisible. With Elio holding Corinne's hand and Bastian walking behind, they looked like any tired family heading home. Nazion Plaza is fortified, Bastian said at the bus stop. Every building has a back door. On the bus, Corinne positioned Bastian away from the aisle. Elio watched the city slide past. My grandmother cleaned offices downtown, Corinne said. She told me about the tunnels. Chicago's built in layers, service corridors, freight passages, basements connecting basements. And you can access them? I know someone. Her cousin Terrence met them on Wacker Drive in a maintenance uniform, keys jangling. He studied Bastian, then unlocked a door marked authorized personnel only. Tunnel runs east-west under most of the loop, Terrence said. Nazion Plaza connects through the old mailroom. The stairwell descended into damp darkness. Elio's grip tightened. Corinne squeezed his hand 3 times. At the bottom, the tunnel stretched long and echoing, pipes dripping condensation. Quarter-mile east, Terrence said. Yellow stripes. Right fork. 2 levels up. You be careful, he added to Corinne. You've got Grand's look. The one she had when she testified. Maybe it's time, Corinne said. They moved through the tunnel, footsteps splashing softly. Elio walked between them. I'm scared, he whispered. So am I, Corinne said. Fear means you love something enough to fight. What do you love? The truth. The yellow stripes appeared. They climbed into the abandoned mailroom, dust thick on sorting tables. Above them, Nazion Plaza pulsed with late-night power. 4 hours, Bastian said. Then we move, Corinne replied. The building after hours had its own rhythm, cleaners, guards, silence in between. On the 3rd floor, a guard glanced up from his phone. Maintenance, Corinne said, flashing Terrence's badge. Water leak. They passed without issue. They avoided elevators, took the stairs. By the 5th floor, Elio faltered. Bastian lifted him without hesitation. Tell him about her, Corinne said quietly. Say her name. Bastian stopped on the 7th floor landing. Angelina, he said. She was brilliant. Economics. Accounting. She believed power needed purpose. His voice thickened. She wanted us to evolve. That's why he killed her, Corinne said. I should have protected her. Mama said you were brave, Elio whispered. Because you were trying to change things. Bastian knelt and pulled him close. I'm sorry I let you carry this alone. I stayed quiet to protect you, Elio said. You don't have to anymore, Bastian replied. I hear you now. They climbed the last flight. The archive doors loomed, heavy and sealed. Once I enter, Bastian said, there's a log. He already knows, Corinne said. Speed is all we have. Green light. Doors opened. Rows of recorded history stretched endlessly. Bastian found the sessions quickly. Marcello's voice filled the room, damning and undeniable. Download everything, Corinne urged. Lights cut out. A voice echoed from the doorway. Hello, brother, Marcello said. I've been waiting. Marcello Drago stood silhouetted in the archive doorway, backlit like a figure from a Renaissance painting. Shorter than Bastian, broader, his face seemed friendly until it didn't. Tonight, it wore murder in tailored fabric. I'm impressed, he said, voice smooth. Maintenance tunnels, worker disguises, bypassing security. Resourceful for a man drowning in grief. Let us leave, Marcello. Bastian positioned himself between his brother and his son. You've taken enough. Leave? Marcelo laughed, the sound bouncing off metal shelves. You broke into the commission archive. That's execution-worthy. Steal my files? Yes, the system alerted me. You've written your own death warrant. In shadow, Corinne slid her phone onto a shelf, recording with a clear line. If it went wrong, there'd be a record. Those recordings prove you killed Angelina, Bastian said steadily. Embezzlement, conspiracy, your plan to replace me. They prove ambition. Not a crime in our world, practically a requirement. Marcelo shrugged. As for Angelina, the recordings prove nothing. I kept those plans offline. But I heard you. Elio's voice cut the darkness, clear and unwavering. I heard you tell that man to kill Mama. Everything. Marcelo's expression softened into false affection. Elio, my dear nephew. 2 years of silence, now memories bloom? The commission will see a traumatized child manipulated by a desperate father, telling lies about a loving uncle. I'm not lying, Elio said, firmer now. I was scared. Not anymore. You should be. Marcelo's hand drifted toward his jacket. Here's what happens, your father confesses, you come live with me. I raise you properly. Teach you what it really means to be a Drago. Over my dead body, Bastian said. Exactly what I'm counting on. Marcelo reached for his gun. Corinne stepped forward, phone held high. Except we're recording this. Every word, every threat. Uploading in real time. You kill us, try spinning a family tragedy, this goes straight to the commission. Marcelo froze, eyes locking on her like a predator seeing new prey. The waitress from the bistro? Bastian, taking advice from the help? Her name is Corinne, Bastian said. And she's braver than your trained killers tonight. Courage or stupidity, Marcelo muttered, hand still near his jacket. That recording won't matter. The commission will trust a respected family member over a waitress and a traumatized child. Maybe not alone, Corinne admitted. But combined with the archive recordings? Elio's testimony? Threats made inside the commission archive? That's enough to trigger investigation. And once they dig, who knows what they'll find? Marcelo weighed his options, expression flickering, gears turning behind his practiced mask. Then he smiled, a cold, calculating thing worse than anger. You're right. Investigation would be inconvenient. Alternative, 48 hours. Leave Chicago. Take the boy, your friend. Disappear. Erase the recordings. Never speak of this again. You'd let us go? Bastian's skepticism cut sharp. Let you run? Life spent looking over your shoulder, knowing I could change my mind. The commission would wonder why you fled if innocent. And your son grows up thinking his father was a coward. No deal? No deal, Bastian said immediately. Marcelo's hand inched toward the gun. One way or another, it ends tonight. You're right, Corinne said, pressing her phone. It ends tonight. Just not the way you think. The archive speakers crackled, amplifying their conversation to every corner. Corinne's contacts began blasting the feed to news outlets, gossip blogs, and social media. You wanted control, she said. Too late. The city's listening. Marcelo's face cycled through shock, fury, calculation, and resignation. When he drew his gun, it was with the quiet certainty of someone already beaten. Then I guess we all die together, he said. Before he could fire, doors burst open. Marco and Dominic stormed in, weapons drawn, flanked by men Corinne didn't recognize, soldiers, allies, drawn by the broadcast. Behind them, the commission arrived, suits immaculate, eyes carved from stone. Stand down, Marcelo Drago, the eldest said, voice carrying decades of authority. You're under arrest for conspiracy, embezzlement, violation of commission law. We heard everything. Marcelo lowered his gun. Eyes meeting Bastian's promised this wasn't over. Corinne looked at Elio, small but resolute. It's over, she whispered. You're safe now. 3 days later, Marcelo sat smug behind one-way glass. He's waiting, Bastian said. Archive recordings alone aren't enough for murder conviction. They prove conspiracy, embezzlement, intent, but not killing Angelina. Commission Representative Sal Benedetti added, your son's testimony helps, but defense will argue trauma, false memory, coaching. We need physical evidence. Gun, transaction records, something linking him directly. He wouldn't keep evidence, Bastian said. He's too careful. Everyone makes mistakes, Corinne said quietly. Keeps trophies, holds on to what they shouldn't. You have an idea? Bastian asked. Risky, Corinne admitted. It involves using Elio as bait. Absolutely not, Bastian said. Papa, let her explain, Elio tugged his sleeve. Corinne organized her plan. Marcello believes the only witness is a child he can discredit. What if we give him the chance to eliminate that witness? Make him think he can still win? Draw him out, Benedetti said. The commission allows prisoner visits. Elio could say he'll recant, claim confusion, say he didn't see anything. Marcello wouldn't believe it, Bastian argued. He might if Elio acts scared, Corinne said. The trial, media, testifying, it's too much. Marcello wants it gone. Kids are manipulable. He thinks he's smarter than everyone. And then? Bastian demanded. Conditional release, Benedetti said. Ankle monitor, restricted movement, out of cell. First stop, wherever he kept his insurance. Safe houses. Evidence. Including proof of Angelina's death. I can do it, Elio said quietly. I stayed silent 2 years. I can pretend one conversation. Bastian knelt, gripping his son's hands. You don't go alone. We'll be listening, watching. Say the word, and it ends. Elio nodded. The visit was arranged. The boy, wired, entered the visiting area. Marcello's face lit with avuncular warmth. Elio. They let you see me. Wonderful. I'm sorry, Uncle Marcello, the boy said. Sorry? For what, buddy? For saying those things. Lawyers ask questions. Papa looks at me like I should remember. I don't know anymore. I was so little. Maybe I got confused. Bastian's hands clenched. He's brilliant, Corinne whispered. Watch. Marcello leaned in. You think you were confused? I was hiding. It was dark. Mama was scared. Maybe I heard wrong, or maybe I made it fit my sadness, someone to blame. Very mature, Marcello said, voice coated in false sympathy. But if I say I was wrong, Papa will be disappointed. He wants me to testify. I love him. But I love you too. I just want things back to normal. Marcello studied him, then clasped his hand. It's okay. Memory is tricky. Your father means well, but grief makes him seek conspiracies where there's just tragedy. So you didn't hurt Mama? No, buddy. What happened was terrible, but random. Robbery gone wrong. Your father's pain twisted it. I loved her, always. He promised care, for both father and son. When they ask for testimony, just tell the truth. Not sure. Scared. Confused. That's enough. Okay, Uncle Marcello. 2 days later, conditional release. Ankle monitor. Smile. 4 hours later, he moved. Taxis, transfers, underground pedway, tracked. Blue Phoenix Jazz Club, abandoned and boarded. Key in hand, he slipped inside. Safe house, Bastian breathed. 30 minutes later, he emerged with a lockbox. Commission teams moved in. Cornered in the alley, lockbox clutched. It's over, Benedetti said. Put it down. Marcello's defiance flickered, then he complied. Inside, payment records, photos, even the gun wrapped like a trophy. Why keep it? Bastian asked. Insurance, Benedetti said. Criminals can't resist. Keeps leverage. Corinne watched Elio study evidence that would bring justice. He underestimated you, she said softly. Mama made me strong, Elio replied. Quiet to survive, speak when needed. She smiled, thinking, some silences are prisons, some preparation. Choosing when to be seen separates surviving from living. The commission convened 2 weeks later in Mazione Plaza's grand chamber. Vaulted ceilings, dark wood panels, portraits of former heads staring down with judgment already rendered. The gallery teemed with family members from every territory, each eager to witness one of their own fall. Corinne sat in the public section, Elio between her and Bastian. The boy wore a tailored suit, looking older but still undeniably a child. His face was calm, but she felt tremors beneath the surface. You don't have to watch, she whispered. Yes, I do, Elio said quietly. Mama would want me to see this through. Marcello was led in, prison orange replacing his usual expensive suits. Ankle monitor and cuffs constrained his movement, yet his eyes found Elio, flickering with anger, betrayal, and maybe grudging respect. The proceedings were ritualistic, steeped in decades of tradition. Evidence was methodically presented, archive recordings proving conspiracy, the lockbox proving premeditation and murder, financial records documenting embezzlement and overreach. Each item authenticated, entered into the record, weighty and damning. Then came testimony. Elio walked to the witness chair with steady steps, hand raised to swear the oath without hesitation. Corinne felt Bastian's hand grip hers tightly. State your name for the record. Elio Marco Drago. Son of Bastian and Angelina Drago. His voice carried clearly. You were present the night your mother was killed? Yes, sir. Tell us what you saw. Elio recounted everything, the hiding, the voices, the moments before and after his mother's death. His words were precise, damning, and unshaken by tears. Marcello's lawyer tried every tactic, false memory, coaching, trauma-induced confusion. Elio held firm. Why wait 2 years, the lawyer asked, playing his last card. I was protecting my father, Elio said simply. If I told him what Uncle Marcello did, he'd have sought revenge. In your world, revenge means war. I stayed quiet until I could find another way. Silence filled the chamber. From somewhere in the gallery, someone began clapping. Slowly, others joined. The applause swelled, honoring a child's courage. The chairman gavelled silence, his expression hinting at approval. Expert testimony followed, handwriting analysts, forensic investigators, financial auditors. Each piece layered the case, irrefutable. Then, the commission played the recording from Elio's wire, Marcello's own voice attempting to manipulate his nephew, sealing his fate. Marcello's face hardened as he listened. When it ended, the chairman asked, Do you have anything to say in your defense? A long silence. Then Marcello rose, ignoring his lawyer, addressing the commission directly. In my defense? No. I did what I did. Killed my brother's wife because she discovered my plans. I manipulated the situation to cast suspicion on Bastian because he was weak, sentimental, unsuited to lead. Everything I did because the Drago family needed strong, ruthless leadership. Power above sentiment. Survival above outdated honor. So you admit guilt, the chairman said. I admit ambition, once a virtue in our world. His gaze found Bastian. Your son is braver than you deserve. You're softer than I imagined, letting a waitress, his eyes flicked dismissively to Corinne, dictate family strategy. You've weakened the Drago name. No, Bastian replied, standing. We've evolved it. Strength isn't violence or control. It's knowing when to listen, adapt, and let go of old ways that no longer serve us. Philosophical drivel, Marcello spat. Without someone willing to make hard choices, Drago family will crumble. Then we'll crumble with honor intact, Bastian said. Something you never understood. Deliberation lasted less than an hour. Verdict, guilty on all counts. Marcello Drago sentenced to life, no parole, assets seized, name stricken from family records. As guards led him away, he looked at Elio. You should have stayed quiet, boy. Silence was your safety. I was never safe, Elio said. Not while you were free. None of us were. Outside, Bastian knelt before his son. I'm proud of you. More than you'll ever know. Is it really over? Elio asked. The trial is. Healing takes longer. But we'll do it together. Corinne thought about her grandmother, languages spoken when words fail, the journey from silence to truth. About a boy in a yellow raincoat, entering a bistro full of danger and walking out months later into sunlight and possibility. Together, she agreed. For the first time in 2 years, the word felt like a promise. They let their guard down. That simple truth almost cost them everything. 3 days later, in the parking structure beneath Nazione Plaza, Bastian went to meet commission lawyers. Elio stayed with his aunt. Corinne and Bastian were alone. A first shot shattered the car window, missing by inches. Bastian instinctively grabbed Corinne, pulling her behind a concrete pillar as more bullets ricocheted through the garage. How many? She gasped. At least 3. Professionals, Bastian said, gun drawn. Funneling us east. Classic ambush. So we go west? If we can. He leaned out, firing twice toward muzzle flashes. Return fire chipped concrete inches from his head. Better positioning, better weapons. This isn't a hit. It's execution. Backup wasn't there yet. Marco and Dominic, expected nearby, were off shift. We can't stay. Corinne scanned. Eventually, they'll walk up and finish us. She spotted a maintenance door 20 feet away. There. Cover me? You're not going. Do you have a better idea? She met his eyes, determination shining. I've been invisible my whole life. Let me use that. Before he could protest, she moved low and fast, using parked cars for cover. Gunfire sparked off metal but she reached the door. Locked. Years of dating a locksmith had taught her enough. Bobby pins from her hair, hands shaking but steady. Bastian laid down covering fire, counting rounds. Lock clicked open. Bastian. Now. He ran, firing backward, pulling her into the corridor as bullets punched metal. The maintenance corridor swallowed them. Footsteps behind echoed, professional killers following. How do they know? Corinne panted. Thermal imaging, probably military grade, Bastian said. We need to split up. Absolutely not. One target together, or we die alone. We stay together. We've made it this far. We finish together. They burst into a massive mechanical room. Catwalks crisscrossed overhead, steam venting from boilers, obscuring visibility. Up, Bastian decided. Heat from machines will confuse thermal. Climbing, they positioned behind a boiler, its surface radiating heat. Shooters below scanned blindly. Corinne spotted a steam valve halfway down a catwalk. I can create cover, she whispered. No. We don't have a choice. She moved low, ignoring gunfire, aiming for the valve. One shooter fired near her head. Bastian returned fire, sacrificing concealment for hers. She pulled with every ounce of strength. The valve gave, sending superheated steam hissing through the chamber. Shooters scattered, blinded. Bastian. Move. He wasn't moving. Wounded, blood spreading across his side. Corinne dashed through the steam, grabbed him, supporting his weight. They reached the service ladder. Behind, Marco's team engaged the shooters, buying time. They climbed stairs, emerging into the hall where office workers scattered. 911 calls. Someone pressed a cloth to her shoulder, the bullet wound warm. Elio? Bastian gasped. Safe, Corinne said, keeping him calm. Marco called ahead. Your son's safe. Bastian's eyes found hers. Gratitude, pain, recognition. You saved my life. You saved mine first. Parking garage. Bistro. Every time you could have taken Elio alone, you didn't. Family now, whether you like it or not. Paramedics arrived, efficient and professional. Corinne let them treat her shoulder. Bastian went with another team. The last thing she remembered before darkness took her was Elio's voice. Coco? Papa? Stay with me. Please stay with me. She squeezed his hand 3 times, in her grandmother's language, I love you, and let go, trusting that love would be enough. The Rivers Center opened on a Tuesday in late spring, when Chicago had shaken off winter and remembered beauty. The building was modest, a converted brownstone in Pilsen, 3 stories of warm brick and large windows, with a small garden in back where families could sit among tomato plants and butterfly bushes. Inside, it was part community center, part therapy practice, part safe haven. Offices for counselors specializing in trauma, especially childhood trauma, a kitchen where cooking classes taught patience, community, and the healing power of feeding others. A library full of books in English and Spanish, a computer room for job seekers, and on the top floor, a quiet room with cushions and soft light where people could simply exist without expectation. Corinne stood in the main hall, watching families arrive for the opening, feeling something she'd almost forgotten, hope. Her shoulder still ached, and the scar would fade slowly, but the memory of the parking garage, the bullets, the blood, the certainty they were going to die, would take longer. Yet she was healing. They all were. Bastian appeared at her elbow, carrying 2 cups of rich drinking chocolate. He'd stopped wearing suits daily, trading them for sweaters and jeans that made him look less like a mob boss and more like a father learning to be present. Nervous? He asked. Terrified. What if nobody comes? Look around. The hall was filling with families, survivors, children, people seeking belonging. They're already here. You built this, Coco. You made something real. The center bore her name, but Bastian's money had made it possible. After Marcello's conviction and the attempted assassination, the commission had offered reparations, formal acknowledgement that the Drago family had been wronged until a waitress and a child forced truth into light. Something useful, Corinne had said, for people like Elio. Like me. People trapped in silence who need a way out. So they'd created the Rivers Center, a place where silence was respected, but not required, where invisibility was a choice rather than a survival mechanism. Elio appeared, leading a small girl by the hand, one of the neighborhood children too shy to come alone. He was taller now, face losing its childish roundness, but eyes still carrying the awareness of someone who had seen darkness and chosen the light. Miss Rivera is here, he said. My art teacher. She wants to volunteer, maybe teach classes. That's wonderful. Show her around? Sure. He started to run, then turned back. Coco? Thank you. For all of this. For everything. She pulled him into a hug, marveling that her life now included being someone a child thanked, someone who mattered, not despite her invisibility, but because she had learned when to step out of it. The celebration began at noon. After speeches from Benedetti about community healing and the alderman about revitalization, Corinne was called to the podium. She'd prepared remarks, rewritten dozens of times. Standing there, looking at faces carrying their own stories, the words felt wrong. So she told the truth. 2 years ago, I was a waitress who'd perfected being invisible. I thought that was safety. But I wasn't living. She found Elio in the crowd, Bastian beside him, their expressions giving her courage. Then I met a little boy who'd survived something terrible by choosing silence. I recognized myself in him. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is speak up, step forward, risk being seen. Staying silent, staying small, staying hidden, that's not living. That's existing. The room was quiet. The Rivers Center exists for everyone who's been made to feel invisible to be safe. For survivors of violence, trauma, systems that silenced them. This is a place where your voice matters. Where your story matters. Where you can choose silence if you need it, but people will always be ready to listen when you're ready to speak. Emotion threatened to overwhelm her. My grandmother used to say silence has its own language. True. But she also taught me there's a time to find new languages. This center is about all those languages, quiet and loud, everything between. It's about meeting people where they are, helping them get to where they want to be. Applause built until the whole room clapped. Some cried. Corinne felt she had found her purpose. Later, in the garden, they sat on her grandmother's transplanted bench. Elio asked her to tell about Gran. She told him about Mississippi, the Great Migration, cleaning buildings, and raising children alone, the stroke that took words but not spirit, walnut shell boats, and the language of three squeezes, love expressed in silence. She sounds brave, Elio said. She was. She taught me to survive. But you taught me the difference between surviving and living. Bastian had been quiet, watching them. I'd been thinking about what comes next. The commission offered me a position as liaison for community relations, helping families, reducing violence, supporting legitimate businesses. It will mean travel, time away from Elio. I can come, Elio said immediately. I was thinking you might prefer staying here, school, routine, Bastian said. If Corinne would be willing to be your guardian while I'm away. Corinne's breath caught. Bastian. You're already family. You risked your life for us. Elio trusts you. Loves you. So do I. He took her hand. I'm not asking you to replace Angelina. But I'm asking you to be part of his life. Permanently. If you want to be. She looked at Elio, those deep, hopeful eyes. She thought of the boy in the yellow raincoat carrying a secret too heavy for small shoulders. Of marshmallow boats, grandmother's stories, the journey from silence to speech. Yes, she said, tears streaming. Yes, I want that. Elio launched himself at her, whispering I love you over and over like an incantation against darkness. In that garden, Chicago humming around them, the future uncertain but full of possibility, they were exactly where they needed to be. Not invisible. Not silent. Not alone. Just human. Just healing. Just home. If you made it this far, you've witnessed how the most dangerous secrets aren't kept behind locked vault doors, but behind the glassy, distant eyes of a child who saw too much. The Drago family's journey reminds us that in a world of marble exteriors and lethal reputations, true power isn't found in a gunshot, but in the courage to finally break a heavy silence. Corinne Coco Rivers wasn't just a waitress serving cocoa, she was the steady witness who offered a safe harbor when every expert had failed. Have you ever felt like you had to stay invisible just to survive? Have you ever carried a truth so heavy you thought it might drown you? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I read every one, because like Coco, I know that every story deserves a listener. If this tale of marshmallow boats and a 10-minute flood of truth resonated with you, share it with someone who understands that survival is just keeping forward, even when you're tiny in a big ocean. Remember, never mistake silence for emptiness, or a child's stillness for lack of sight. The loudest thing in the room is often the secret someone is finally ready to tell. Until next time, keep your ears open and never underestimate the waitress, she might just be the one to help you find your voice.